Welcome to Dead Letters. I am your curator of the curious, your host of the haunted, Damien Darkly. So turn down the lights, lean in closer, and let us examine the case of the collaborative curse, the perfect alibi, and the one detective who saw the plot whole. Our story begins not with a gunshot, but with a pen running out of ink. In the sun-drenched, palm-lined wealth of Southern California, we find the most successful writing partnership in the mystery genre. Kenwood Fry and Jonathan Bleakley. Kenwood Fry, the face. Charismatic, handsome, a darling of the talk show circuit. He was the public persona, the one who did the book signings, gave the lectures, smiled for the cameras. But he was, by all accounts, a mediocre writer at best. His partner, Jonathan Bleakley, the brains. A reclusive, brooding genius, a spider in a web of intricate plots and twisted denouements. He was the engine of Fry and Bleakley, the one who actually crafted the best-selling novels that made them both millionaires. He worked from home, a stunning modernist house perched precariously on a hillside, a glass cage for a troubled mind. But the partnership had soured, bitterly. Kenwood, tired of being seen as the empty suit, wanted to break out on his own. He'd gotten a lucrative offer for a solo project. Jonathan, the artist, saw it as the ultimate betrayal. He wanted to dissolve their contract, their company, their very identity. He threatened to sue, to bury Kenwood in lawsuits, to expose him as a fraud. The stage was set. The motives were clear: greed, pride, and artistic vengeance. All that was missing was the crime. Jonathan's typewriter stops, the sound of a car pulling up on gravel. And that is where our story truly begins. On a rain-soaked afternoon, Kenwood Fry drives up to his partner's secluded house. They have one last meeting, a final argument. The housekeeper, a timid woman named Mrs. Petrov, hears the raised voices before she leaves for her afternoon off. She is the last person to see Jonathan Bleakley alive. Except for his killer. Sound of a struggle, a blunt impact, a body falling. Then silence, except for the rain. When the police arrive, summoned by a frantic phone call from Kenwood Fry himself, they find a scene of brutal simplicity. Jonathan Bleakley is dead on the floor of his study, his skull crushed by a heavy bronze bookend. The glass sliding door to the patio is shattered from the outside. The place is ransacked. A burglary, it seems, gone horribly wrong. And Kenwood Fry, he has the most perfect alibi imaginable. The perfect crime and the imperfect. Detective. Fry tells his story with practiced, panicked elegance. He was here, they argued. He left in a fury. He drove to a nearby payphone, this was the time before mobiles, children, to call his lawyer. But then he realized he'd left his briefcase behind. He returned, saw the broken glass, the body, and called the police immediately. And the alibi, it's airtight. On his drive to the payphone, he was pulled over for a speeding ticket. The time on the ticket places him miles away from the scene of the murder at the exact time it occurred. The forensics back it up. The rain had started after he claimed to have left, and his car was bone dry. He couldn't have been there. The local police are ready to write it down as a tragic break-in. Case closed. But then he arrives. Sound of a rusty, sputtering car engine that coughs and dies. A car door creaks open and slams shut. A rumpled trench coat that looks like it slept in a ditch. A half-smoked cigar, a perpetually confused manner. This is Lieutenant Frank Vago, and he is a human itch you can't quite scratch. Lt. Vago. Voice is gentle, apologetic. Sir, Mr. Fry, I'm sorry to bother you again, just one more thing. Damien, this is Vago's signature phrase. Just one more thing. It always comes just as the conversation is over, as the suspect is turning away, their guard dropping. It's the pin that pops the balloon. Kenwood Fry, smooth, sophisticated Kenwood, is initially amused by this shambling hound dog of a detective. He thinks Vago is a fool, a bumbler. He patiently answers his meandering, seemingly irrelevant questions. Lt. Vago, this fella, your partner, he was a real neatnik, wasn't he? Everything in its place. My wife, she's always on me about my socks. Vago notices things, small things, illogical things. In a ransacked study, why is one drawer perfectly arranged? Why is there a single fresh coffee mug in the sink when the housekeeper had already left? And the broken glass, it's all outside on the patio. As if the door was broken from the inside. Vago doesn't accuse, he just wonders. Out loud. He pokes at the tiny loose threads of Fry's perfect narrative. Fry, believing himself intellectually superior, begins to engage. It's a fatal mistake. He tries to help the poor, simple detective understand. He even offers Vago a gift, a rare first edition from his and Bleakley's collection, knowing Vago won't appreciate its value. It's a gesture of pure, condescending arrogance. But Vago keeps circling back. He becomes fascinated with the method of the crime, not the alibi, but the mechanics. He reconstructs the scene over and over. Vago. See, if I was gonna fake a break-in, which I wouldn't cause it's against the law, but if I was, I'd want to make it look good. I'd use a pry bar on the door, maybe smash a window, but a bookend? That's personal, that's angry. Damien, Vago's investigation is a masterclass in misdirection. He seems obsessed with Fry's car, with the timing of the rain, with the weather report from that day. He talks about his own wife, about recipes, about anything but the murder. He lulls Fry into a false sense of security. But all the while, he's painting Fry into a corner. Every sorry to bother you is another brushstroke. He asks Fry to walk him through his story again. And again. And each time Fry, the performer, delivers his lines perfectly. But a story that's too perfect is just as suspicious as one full of holes. The key, Vago realizes, isn't in the alibi. The alibi is unbreakable. The key is in the typewriter. Jonathan Bleakley was a creature of habit. A genius, but a compulsive one. He always ended his writing day in the middle of a sentence. It was his way of picking up the thread the next morning. It was a known fact among his fans, detailed in interviews. But when his body was discovered, the paper in his typewriter held a perfectly completed sentence. Vago knows this. It's the detail that doesn't fit. The victim's most ingrained habit broken on the day of his murder? Unlikely. Which means the killer typed that sentence. The killer sat at Bleakley's desk after murdering him and finished his page. But why? What possible reason? The reason was time. Kenwood Fry's brilliant, twisted plan. He never left after the argument. He hid. He waited for the housekeeper to leave. He then murdered his partner. But he needed to create a window of time where he could be placed far away. So after the murder, he smashed the glass door from the inside to stage the break-in. But then he did something else. He sat at his partner's typewriter and finished the page. Why? To use the typewriter's internal clock. You see, this was a special electric typewriter with a built-in timer that stamped the date and time on every finished page. Fry finished the page, and the timer stamped it. He then set the clock ahead by over an hour. He created a time-stamped document that proved Jonathan Bleakley was alive and typing long after he himself had already been pulled over for a speeding ticket miles away. It was a masterpiece of misdirection. The police never even checked the typewriter's clock. They assumed the time stamp was correct. Why wouldn't they? Only a man who knew his partner's obsessive habit would ever think to use it as a weapon. But Frank Vago noticed the completed sentence. And Frank Vago wondered why a man would change a lifelong ritual on the day he died. Vago doesn't arrest him. He doesn't have enough. Instead, he sets a trap. He asks Fry to come down to the station to help him with a theoretical problem about the typewriter, a piece of evidence he just can't figure out. In the evidence room, Vago plays the fool. He marvels at the machine, this fancy, complicated gadget. He apologizes for his ignorance. It's just my nephew, he's got one of these digital watch things, and I can never figure how to set the time on it. This must be the same, right? You seem like a fella who knows about fine machinery. How does one change the time on this thing? And Kenwood Fry, smug, superior, and desperate to see if his trick had been discovered, takes the bait. He leans over the typewriter, the murder weapon in all but name, and expertly demonstrates how to change the clock setting. Oh, I see. So you just press this button here and turn this dial, and you could set it to any time you wanted. A long, silent pause. Any time at all. The realization dawns on Fry's face. He wasn't showing a detective how a machine works. He was showing the detective how he committed murder. He had just reenacted the final, crucial step of his perfect crime. The trap door had swung open. The alibi was broken. The typewriter clock wasn't proof of life. It was proof of premeditation. Defeated, outmaneuvered by the man he thought a fool, Kenwood Fry's slick facade crumbles. They're in the cold, sterile evidence room, surrounded by the silent witnesses of other crimes. The brilliant mystery writer confesses to his own. The sound of a cell door slamming shut with a heavy, final echo. Kenwood Fry believed he could write the perfect crime just like in his novels. He plotted every detail, every twist, every red herring. But he forgot one thing. Life isn't a novel. It's messier. It has loose ends. And it has detectives like Frank Vago who don't follow the plot. They unravel it. Sometimes fact is stranger than fiction, but today's story was totally fictional, written by Steven Bochco and directed by a young Steven Spielberg for the Columbo TV series. The episode entitled Murder by the Book. Thank you for spending your time with me, your host Damien Darkley. Until next time, unpleasant dreams.